treadmills at Roger Black Fitness. We have the Easy Fold treadmill, which folds away, amazing, and we have the Gold treadmill. That they are different products, but when it comes to maintaining them, what are your tips for those treadmills?
The number one issue that we receive with treadmills is due to lack of lubrication, issues with motors due to the friction caused between the belt and the deck when you walk on the machine. So every time your foot lands on the belt, there is friction between the belt and the deck below that. So we apply a lubricant between the two surfaces. Now your machine will arrive pre-lubricated, but you'll usually get a little pot of lubricant in with the machine. And that's what you need to top up the lubricant on the machine as you use it. It's something that you need to do repeatedly. I would advise customers that are using the machine regularly to check it every 30 days, lubricate when needed. So you would lift the belt up, put your hand under the belt. If you felt the lubricant still in place, no need to lubricate it. If there's no lubricant there, the deck feels dry, then lubricate.
So you could actually feel when it's lubricated, you should be able to feel the lubrication.
Yeah, there's an oily film that sits on the wooden deck that's below the running belt, so you can actually feel it. If it's dry, it needs to be lubricated, and it's more important for customers that use the treadmill to mainly walk on, because the amount of friction caused when you're walking is increased because there's always contact between your foot and that belt. When you're running, you lift your foot in the air, so there's less impact. But when you're walking, there's constant impact. You're constantly fighting against the motor, which is trying to drive that belt along.
Now, I never knew that, Steve, and I should have known it. But of course, it makes complete sense, because you think if you're walking, you're not actually working the machine as much as if you're running. But of course, when it comes to the belt, you're probably striking the belt. The belt is touching the machine far more than when you're running. That's really interesting. Yeah.
Also, the motor comes assembled with a weighted flywheel on the end. So when the motor is going at a certain speed, the flywheel gains momentum, and that pushes the motor along and works the belt easier for the motor. The motor's not working quite as hard when the flywheel's got the momentum, so it doesn't need to work as hard. The last thing you need is for the motor to overheat, because that will cause you problems. So generally, lubricating under the belt is the most important thing you can do.
The most important thing. Okay, Steve, so lubricating under the belt is the most important thing when it comes to looking after your treadmill. But what else is there we need to look for?
So it's very important to get the treadmill on a flat surface. So you'll either have a gym mat or some sort of foam underneath the machine. It's recommended. Also, that will reduce impact on your knees. So obviously the treadmill is a machine that creates a lot of impact on the joints. The treadmill will come with suspension so that it reduces that, but anything else you can do to reduce that by putting mats under the machine to level it up, it's beneficial to the user.
So do you recommend people to they can use it on a carpet, I guess, but you're saying if you're in the garage or if you're on a hard floor, it's advisable to get a big mat to put it on?
Definitely, 100%. It reduces the impact on the joints. It's not questionable in my mind. It's the most important thing. Also, if you're in a garage, you're reducing. If you think about a machine, a treadmill, the motor gets really hot when you're using it, and then cools down. So if the treadmill is sitting on a cold garage floor, it's introducing cold to the machine. So the fluctuations between hot and cold causes condensation on the electronics inside. So you want to reduce the cold side of that by insulating it from the floor. So it's really important to put something between them, the machine and the concrete floor.
And Steve, you mentioned with a treadmill, keep having it level. You can make adjustments when you get the machine to adjust it to make it level, because obviously surfaces are not always perfect, are they?
You need to get it as level as possible. What you will find if the machine's not level is that it will rock as you use it. So as you put your foot forward, the machine will go that way, and as you lift your foot, it'll fall backwards away from you. So it won't be a very nice experience. But underneath On the gold treadmill especially, you've got some adjusting feet on the main frame, so that's what you use to adjust it. And always put something at the back end where the deck falls below the wheels.
Okay.
So that's you know, the best sort of tip for leveling it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Steve, so we've talked about lubrication, we've talked about protection to the machine and leveling. Anything else for treadmills you want to let us know?
Yeah, again, in a garage situation, it is important to cover it up in the cold winter months. Again, covering the machine up insulates it from the cold. You don't want large differences between the hot and the cold temperatures that are generated by using the machine and not using it. So cover the machine up in the winter.
So what would you? I mean, you can't buy a treadmill cover, can you? But what would you use?
A large blanket duvet, something like that. That'll sit over the top of the treadmill just to reduce the coldness that it's going to experience in that situation.
And if you can't get one big enough for the whole treadmill, what areas are most important? But by the motor or by the
by the motor? That's where the most heat will be generated. Yeah. So the motor and maybe the console as well. If you've got any damp in there, then definitely cover the console as well.
Okay, brilliant. Didn't know that.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. It's a common thing to have them in a garage because they're a large machine. If it's in your house, you're not going to experience the same temperature differences, so it's not really relevant. But in a garage situation, definitely.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's really interesting, Steve. Thanks.